Hi, Lisa.
All right, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome, Rachel and Stefan, to our cohort session. Um, and hi, everyone. We're so thrilled to be hosting our friends, colleagues, and my close neighbors, and Bob's close neighbors, Rachel and Steffen Schneider from the Institute for Mindful Agriculture. They will share a framework for community engagement designed by the Presencing Institute, which supports work toward a higher level of collaboration for positive change. Rachel and Stefan are a husband and wife duo who live in Ghent in Columbia County. They have been steeped in this approach for years and they'll share their learnings with us. A bit about their background. Rachel is a co-founder of the Institute for Mindful Agriculture along with Stefan. As part of Hawthorne Valley Farm, she worked for more than 25 years and held positions of market gardener and director of the Hawthorne Valley Place-Based Learning Center. She directed farm-based learning experiences for children, taught business training courses for beginning farmers, and developed and offered workshops for people interested in biodynamic agriculture. Rachel now serves as director of the Rolling Grocer, a nonprofit grocery store. Maybe you guys have visited it in Hudson, um, and Food Access Project. The Rolling Grocer mission is to increase the health and collective well-being of Columbia County residents by making wholesome, local, natural, and organic food available to everyone, regardless of their income. This is achieved through a three-tiered pricing system, which is unique. Stefan is also co-founder of the Institute for Mindful Agriculture and director emeritus of farm operations at Hawthorne Valley Farm. Stefan finished his agricultural university studies in Gessen. How do I pronounce that, Stefan?
Ethan.
Gießen, thank you. Gießen, Germany in 1982. He has been a biodynamic practitioner since 1983, first in Wisconsin from 1989 until 2020 at Hawthorne Valley Farm. He loves working with livestock, especially the dairy cows, and his passion for biodynamics continues to grow. He's convinced that a spiritually grounded agriculture is a major lever for social transformation. He has given workshops and lectured at numerous national and international conferences. Through the Institute for Mindful Agriculture, he is currently engaged in the Hudson Valley here and supports food systems change in collaboration with several agricultural ventures, locally and nationally. Presently, he serves on the board of Demeter USA as treasurer. He lives with Rachel in Columbia County in Ghent and is grateful to be able to spend more time with his two sons and three granddaughters. So, welcome to you both. We're so happy to have you here. Um, and I will just pass it to you, however you'd like to start.
Wow.
Thank you, Paige. Do you want me to start, Stefan? Right?
Please,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. This is quite delightful, actually. Um, I'm tasked with getting us going. And I wanted to start with before I show you the agenda for today, I wanted to do a quick round of introductions. So you heard uh, ours, but I'm going to model out something for us, and we can just go around. I don't know if we all see each other in the same order, but I'll call out your name in the order I see you, and we'll model this out very quickly. You can tell us your name, where you live, and something you really like to do when you're not working, something you love doing when you're not working. So we'll just go around quickly and we can then hear each other once. So my name's Rachel Schneider. As Paige said, I live in Harlemville as part, and I work with Steffen at the Institute for Mindful Agriculture. Something I love doing when I'm not working is I'm a part-time potter. So that's really important to me. And I have to sneak in one thing other that's bad. I like to watch detective and suspenseful European
Hmm.
anything Scotland, British, whatever, TV series. That's me. Anya?
Hello, nice to meet you both. I'm Anya. I'm your neighbor in Calvert and Philmont. And I love my vegetable garden. And I rarely get time for it now, but I really enjoy quilting.
Wow. Bob?
Hi, everybody. Bob Andrew. I live in Ghent, and I like to play piano.
What? I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
I didn't know you were a potter.
Heather?
Hi everyone, I'm Heather. I live in Kerhonkson, which is in the town of Rochester. And what do I love to do when I have time to do it? Well, I love to play with herbs. And yeah, I think that's the primary thing. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Butler. I am in Chatham, New York. And I love to garden. And then I also have scent hounds, which is another passion of mine. And I would advise people never to get a beagle because you will step over into nature and it will change you and you'll never want to come back. So.
Interesting. Lisa? I can't hear you. No.
How about now?
Yep.
Yep, sorry about that. I always put my elbow on the mute button. I am Lisa Hintz. I live in the town of Woodbury, which is down by Woodbury Commons, close to, we're about an hour outside of Manhattan. And I'm into houseplants and photography are my current spare time, which is kind of a comical statement. None of us have spare time.
Olga?
Hello, everybody. Olga Anderson. I live in Highland Falls, which is the town of Highlands, right at the front door of West Point Military Academy. Yeah, so my number one passion is gardening, and when I can't do it in the winter, I still go out there and try to, snip on something, gather some seeds here and there, and do as much as weather permits and old bones permit as far as doing outdoor activities, even in the wintertime.
Thank you, Olga. Paige?
Hi, I'm Paige. I live in Austerlitz, and yeah, I used to do photography, but now I think I like looking at art. I like looking at it online, and also connecting with young people in my family lately has been giving me a lot of joy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stefan?
Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody. Really nice to meet you all for the first time, many of you, and I really admire all the work that you are undertaking. So hand clapping right there for all of you. So what do I do? Well, I'm going to admit to a guilty pleasure since I'm not working on the farm full time anymore. I really enjoy my, as I say in Germany, afternoon coffee and Kuchen, my coffee and some sweets. I have a very bad sweet tooth, so it's become an afternoon ritual for me.
That's true. And finally, Vanessa.
I'm Vanessa. I live in Rhinebeck, and when I'm not working, I like to make sculpture.
Oh, interesting. A clay person. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that round. And we've heard each other now. We're all in the space, right? So I wonder, the next thing I'd like to do is turn to the slideshow. So I need to be made the host so I can do that. And we're going to present some content. We're going to ask you to keep notes of your questions. We'll have time at the end of this session to really answer any questions and get into discussion. Okay. And you can either keep the notes by your side, or if you want, you can put it in the chat, but if either way. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is work through an overview of the Presencing Institute and the work and what they do out of what they call Theory U. Then we'll go on to see how Presencing works into our lives at IMA, at the Institute for Mindful Agriculture, and our work. Now we're going to discuss for a bit the idea of systems and community change as PI, Presencing Institute, conceives of it. And as part of that, there's a model that I'll share with you called the three-legged stool. Then we're going to look at some practical tools for working with the Presencing Institute work or working with Theory U. And then we're going to end up with a little bit of practice ourselves. We'll break you up into groups of 2 and have you converse on a question we're going to ask. All right, so we'll get going. And Steffen, there you go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. I first was exposed to the work of the Presencing Institute about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when the book Theory U was shared with me. And so I went to I was able to go to a 2-year program that the Presencing Institute offered at that time. A program that stretched over 2 years and had 4 in-person sessions over that course of the time. And I was there with about 60 other people, all of them pretty much consultants, and I felt completely out of place being there. But in retrospect, it really shifted my life tremendously. It was a tremendous inspiration for me and the work forward. And what really woke me up is this. And it really provided me with a way of making sense of the world and potentially my place in it in a way that was really meaningful for me. And one thing that really shook me up was this way of looking at our time today, which maybe some of you have already heard or seen. You know, we obviously all know that we're living in pretty difficult times. And one way to look at it is that we're suffering of a disconnect in sort of 3 fundamental areas. There's like a really major disconnect between us and the earth that we all rely on for our lives. And at this point, we are consuming our planet way faster than she can really regenerate. There's this organization that tracks that, and at this point, we're almost using twice the planet in each year, and that's certainly not sustainable long term. And then the second one is another really shocking one that and we're probably all aware of it. There's this tremendous wealth inequity in the world. It's when you look at the numbers, it's basically I can't really wrap my mind around the numbers. 10% of humans owning 3/4 of the wealth, and the poorest 50% only have access to about 2%. So as a total humanity, we really have lost the sense of us as fellow human beings by being able to sort of just take it at this point or live in this kind of world. And then the one that I think really shocked me at the time, which I was not aware of at all, is what's called here the spiritual divide. And that is really a sad, tragic reality that, I think today there's an estimated 1 billion humans that suffer from burnout, stress, anxiety, depression, and many of them, way too many of them, find no way out but through committing suicide. So that's really, in my mind, a really tragic symptom of, if one doesn't find any kind of purpose in one's life, it's really difficult to sort of live on this planet and find a way to work and be, have some kind of fulfillment in one's life. And so this last one really kind of shook me awake, and it kind of made me aware that I was living in sort of a bubble. And And then based on these three divides, and we'll get back to that a little later, it enabled us to sort of found a framework for our work now with the Institute by sort of positing that agriculture, but all of us have a way to start bridging those divides by building ecological soil, paying attention to the social soil, and we'll talk a little more about that later, and then building inner soil. And that's going to be sort of, I think you'll see one theme of our talk today. And Rachel, you can go to the next slide, please.
Yes.
And so this sense making that my meeting with presencing enabled me, and don't focus on too many of these words that are on the slide now, but I want to mostly point the attention to the bottom half. You see this U-shaped thing. That's why it's called Theory U. And I just want to point out a couple of things on that, because basically this dynamic that's expressed with a U is sort of a fundamental archetypical dynamic of any kind of change process. And mostly what I want us to focus on right now is, if you look on the left-hand side of the U, you could also just put one word there, and that word would be attention. Am I really paying attention to what's going on? Really paying attention. In order for me to really pay attention, I have to, at least judging by knowing for myself, walk through three gateways or cross three thresholds. And that first threshold is what's called here VOJ. It's my voice of judgment. Can I open my mind and show genuine curiosity? That's number one. Second one is, can I overcome my voice of cynicism? Can I really open my heart and find compassion? And thirdly, can I cross through my voice of fear? In many of my major decisions in life, there was some fear involved before I either did or did not do them. Can I cross that threshold? Can I find the courage and open my will? So, that's really part of attention. And if I can really pay attention in that way by going through these three gateways in my mind and in my heart and in my will, I can come to the bottom of the U where true intuition can happen. And another way of saying presencing would be, presencing can awaken in me a dialogue between my current self and my highest potential self. That can happen at the bottom of the U. And on the right side of the U, as we come through, that's acting, that's agency. So you could really put these three words over this diagram: is attention, intuition, and agency. And so that's basically what then really continues to occupy us and inspire me and also challenge me. And I think we can move on, Rachel.
Okay, just taking a quick note here, and onward we go.
So, and then in going deeper, and then also thinking at my own work, these two statements really continue to what would the word be? Make me wonder and challenge myself. So the first one is, the success, and that was really one of the major inspirations to Otto Scharmer when he first investigated and researched this, what ended up being Theory U. He was interviewing a lot of change makers, a lot of business people, and this one sentence from this gentleman, Bill O'Brien, that the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener, really made me and continues to make me sit up straight. Well, what does that really mean? And I think we'll talk more about this particular piece, because this interior condition is an essential piece, maybe the essential piece. And that gets to the second quote, which, is more like, that's, we all work, we've used to, we are all working on these environmental problems. So this gentleman, Gustav Spies, was saying that he used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. But now he says, I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. So again, there is a real point to myself, to my some of my inner motivations. And so one, you could also say another element of theory U is turning the camera around. I often tend to just sort of externalize my problems, try to sort of minimize what my contribution might be. And then theory U really offers us opportunities and, as you will see on later on, also tools to turn the camera around. So turn the camera around and really look at myself. But then also, how can a community, how can an organization see itself? And then based on what that then reveals, act in a different way. So maybe that is, and maybe the last thing I would say is that this auto Sharma then really is very clear, and I would say in the few years that I was here at Hawthorne Valley, this is something certainly I'm sure was also my blind spot. He says that it's this fact that the interior condition of an intervener is really that is so essential for any kind of success of an action is the major blind spot in leadership today. And that's just something that's always worth for me to remind myself that successful leadership, and I think all of us on this call, everybody in this world today, we could call ourselves a leader. We have to certainly lead our own life, but we also lead initiatives, projects, etc. And successful leadership really goes back to what was on that attention, the quality of attention and intention. And then I'm going to now hand it on to Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Steffen. So I guess I want to pick up on these two quotes and something Steffen said before that. He talked about growing inner soil. So inner soil is, what is the place within me? Is there a way for me to find that inner space and practice growing my own reflective capacity in order to have what he called my current self be an authentic, I would say, an authentic understanding of who I really am. And I connect that to what he called my higher self. So what is that, my higher self? I take that to mean my higher self is living in the sense of when I tell myself, I can do better. I can do better. And the person who's telling me that is my higher self. So how do I get in touch with that person? Because in order to make change, the presencing people and we and Steffen and I through IMA believe that we need to work collaboratively. In order to do that, we have to be able to really listen and listen to one another. And in order to do that, we have to go in and find the capacity to be empathetic, to care, and to kind of remove the barriers that we kind of put conceptually with one another to make it impossible for us to really go down deep. So in terms of collaboration, projects, work, this delving into oneself is like step one to be ready to be a participant in a more group setting. So how do we do that? Well, people and more people these days have some kind of inner reflective practice. It could be meditation. It could be journaling at night. It could be taking a quiet moment to look at my day and say, where did I really meet the challenge of being with other people? And where did I not? And if I didn't, I can inwardly, quietly resolve to make it better. So this question then becomes, when there is a conflict, if I have a conflict with someone, or if I can't break through to someone else, we all suffer because we all care, but we can't find a way to make it better. How much is me? How much is the other person? Can I learn to be observant of myself while I'm present for the other person, even if I disagree with that person? And so that becomes key for the folks at Presencing and for us at the Institute for Mindful Agriculture, because that capacity, building that capacity to listen and speak to people, even if we don't quite agree with them, becomes the basis for, if we can do it truly empathically, opening that presencing space and then finding generative solutions as for problems as a group of people. So I wanted to share this beautiful tree of contemplative practices that we received when we went to a Garrison Institute down not too far from, I think it was Olga, where you live. Is that correct, Steffen? It's pretty close, right? And this is a tree of possibility for how one could start to open that doorway to one's own self. It could involve, just if we start on the left-hand side, it could involve just meditation, quieting the mind, silence, centering. And I have to say, as a potter, if I practice centering and silence every time I'm at the wheel, because I cannot make a pot if I'm not centered. It doesn't come out. It wobbles. My inner being is immediately reflected in how the pot looks, that I'm the bowl I'm trying to make. So it could just be quieting a moment of silence. And then it moves around as we move upward from there. It could involve journaling or visualizations or behold, or even doing something like a loving kindness meditation, and moves on to the arts or working as a volunteer or in being more active. It always involves deep listening and storytelling. It could be part of it. So this is a tree that shows that there's more than one way to be contemplative. The point is to really establish some kind of regular practice, because that's how we build the muscle of coming to know ourselves in a deeper way. If we move on from there is a model that is used by Peter Senge. What's the name of his organization, Steffen?
The Center for System Change.
Yeah. And this is something that he came to, where he said, here are core leadership capacities for developing compassionate systems or communities. Yeah. And that he calls a three-legged stool. The first is very clear. For a group of people trying to develop compassionate communities or compassionate systems, there needs to be an agreed on aspiration, purpose, and vision. And that is something which guides your work. Secondly, though, in working together, there have to be opportunities to reflect together in conversation. And this is where the work that we do reflectively within ourselves can grow into true dialogue. And that dialogue can help us create ethical spaces that we agree upon together. And they can be healing, and they can be lead us to the presencing moment that Steffen talked about in the you, in that you picture. And if we get to a moment where a group of people have gotten so deeply working together in a conversation that a moment is opened, then sometimes very solutions that you would never expect would happen come into the room. And that happens when we each give up our personal separate self for a moment and live in the reflection of one another. And we're so open in how we speak and how we listen, and that something new and generative can come in. So to make system or community change, besides aspiration, purpose, and vision, and the capacity to lead reflective conversation, one has to learn, what system am I in? I have to become aware of the system, if it's the agricultural system or even the community I'm living in. That has to become a living presence for me. I have to go out there and learn about the people who make up that community and the land that it's on, and even the origins, like the people and how it was before. So in order to make change, I think what Peter Senge is telling us, you have to go even to the margins of the community and speak to the people, to the plants, to the land, to the ancestors, and get a deep feeling for who they are and how they want to be part of a transformative process. Do you want to add anything to that, Steffen?
No, I think it goes into the next, kind of leads into the next slide now.
Okay.
So this gets more now into the more nuts and bolts. So how can one do this? And again, there was a real awakening moment for me as I was first encountering this work. And this picture, I think, is worth, it's certainly worth for me to think about. And basically what Sharma says is, are you familiar with what an acetylene torch is? You know, you can heat metal and melt it, or you can weld with it. So it's a really hot flame. It can make iron soft. And he said, just like an acetylene flame has this effect on iron, so a certain type of listening can have an effect in a conversation in a group. It can have such a powerful effect if one really learns how to listen carefully. And so the awakening moment for me was when I first started getting into this work. Is I nobody ever taught me that listening is kind of a skill. That's actually an activity. I always thought, well, listening mostly is you know, you have some ears and stuff comes in and they hear something. But that's really just the beginning of it. And as I'm now just trying to describe a little bit these various qualities of listening, it's important to remember that none of them are bad or none of them are good. They're just they're just they're just possible, right? They're just possible. And though what I would say is important to recognize is that depending on what kind of result one would like to get out of a conversation between two people or within a group, the quality of result absolutely relates to the quality of listening. And so there, you know, we can just sort of I can remind myself, how am I listening to this particular person? Am I just listening, what's called listening one here, that I'm basically only paying really attention to stuff that I already know and don't really listen to the person? And very much I find myself doing that quite a bit, actually, sadly. But then I can also wake up a little more and I can listen to where the other person actually expresses something that's different that I'm not used to knowing. It's new data. That's for me, for example, but maybe listening to a farmer that is farming in a different way and not biodynamics. They will tell me something that I'm not used to. But can I listen to the differences? And then that can, lead to waking up, or I can, it can certainly expand my mind. Um, and then I can go further though, and maybe try not to just listen to what somebody is saying, but to really try to get a sense of what they really mean. What do they mean when they're saying that? I think listening three is sort of really trying to put myself into the other person's shoes, so to speak, and try to listen from their point of view, connecting with the heart of the other person through my heart. And then what can happen is that there's another stage, what's called here listening four, and that is really if I listen, that's more maybe, I mean, it can be two people, but all in a group, if everybody tries to listen really carefully, and it's beyond any individual in the group, but just listen to what's starting to emerge in that space. And probably all of you have been in situations like this where something then somebody says that is completely unexpected, but also really revealing. It really needs that kind of care of listening. And so that's just really, I think, a very critical skill that I think we'll try to practice that together a little bit later. But I can't really stress enough how important that is. I found myself in conversations with people that know this better than I do, and I heard myself saying things that I would never expect I would have said. So it can really have this torch effect on somebody if a partner, a listening partner, is really trying to listen. And then, like I said, none of it is really bad. That the skill that I think Rachel was referring to is if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I can, I think the real I don't know what in karate what the high belt is. The black belt of listening would be if I can listen in level 3 or 4 and at the same time pay attention, listening to the other person, but pay attention to myself, right? That is the real skill. I kind of sometimes catch myself as I'm listening to somebody. I can catch myself thinking about why did the Green Bay Packers lose that game a couple of weeks ago, or why whatever the Knicks kind of lost again yesterday in against the Celtics. I can't understand why they're doing that. So I catch myself going completely off, and that is probably not a good thing if you want to really solve some serious problems together. So I really want to stress that for me, this was a real awakening, this kind of like the way Sharma sort of analyzed the listening, and maybe it's not the only way of doing it, but it's a really important one. And now we can go to the next one, which is the other side of listening, which is the conversation, right? It's very similar there as well. And sort of the connection there, what I want to also stress, two things that I'm absolutely have proven out for myself is one, conversations sometimes, particularly between two people, work quite well or better when you move. So there's something called, that's a dialogue walk. You actually walk with somebody and you talk while you walk. So there's an interesting, I don't know what it is. There's a mystery when you move your body and then you talk at the same time and try to sort of go down to these more qualitative levels. Something can unlock itself that is potentially happens easier than if you just sit. And the second one is, and I just read that before in something else, and I think it is so true. And it's kind of a mystery, and I think it relates to the work that you're doing and that we're all doing. And it said there in this quote, asking the proper questions is the central action of transformation. Questions are the key that causes the secret doors of the psyche to swing open. That's what this particular quote says. But I would say it is absolutely true. And our colleague who works with us on the Institute, Ursula, she's a master in asking questions. I mean, it is really a skill to find the way to ask the right questions. You can really do an amazing job of unlocking a conversation or, unlocking something. But now just briefly here, so here we go, 4 types of speaking to one another. How do we relate to one another? Again, 4 levels. Again, none of them is not a value judgment here. These are just 4 qualities. And again, the result of a conversation will depend on what quality one is going for. So there's level 1 that Sharma calls downloading. And we all probably do, I certainly do that. You just basically say of what you think the other person wants to hear. There's like polite phrases. And then level 2, listen, is that it relates to this listening to differences. You actually start debating. You start comparing your diverging views and debate them, which can eventually lead you down a dead-end road. But it's a good start that can get you potentially into the next level where you then, you sort of get more reflective and you inquire into the other person's why is that person thinking that having 1,000 cows, is fine. Let's really figure out why that is. And let's not have a judgment or anything in my mind, but really listen to that person. So from defending my viewpoint is really inquiring the other person's viewpoint. And then the 4th one, what's called the presencing, is really, and often that gets triggered by some silence. That's sort of another really interesting reality. There's a magic in actually and not maybe enjoying is the wrong word, but valuing silence. Sometimes we're afraid to have a moment of silence in a conversation. It gets a little uncomfortable, but often that is not a bad thing to sort of just stay with that silence, and then something can come out that, again, somebody will say something that is really revealing or helpful. So that's sort of this level 3, and you see in the diagram, you can kind of see how you can move your consciousness from being just completely centered on myself in level 1 to really being more, having my awareness really in the space and really having the situation, whatever it is, sort of guiding my awareness. I put my awareness there. So I think these are real magical, in my mind, really important magical insights that are quite helpful. And I'll just share one last funny story since it relates to the downloading. I'm from, I grew up in Germany, so Germans are usually quite reserved. They don't say too much to each other. It's not so, they don't talk so easily. And so when I came to this country, it was really actually helpful that people were, I assume it was kind of downloading, right? We all say to each other, how are you doing? How are you? Whoever you meet, they just say it. And that's kind of like initially kind of shocked me. I said, oh my God, they're talking to me. But then, it really can actually be, for somebody like myself, it was a way to maybe start a conversation, right? So I want to just say that this downloading, I don't want to give it a bad name. It can actually be helpful to sort of start a process. As long as I'm aware that if I stay there, well, maybe I'll be stuck in a certain place and I'll just be exchanging pleasantries with somebody, which is okay. It's obviously very nice, right? To be, when somebody asks you how you're doing, most likely they're not really interested in finding out how I am doing, and I will most likely not share with them how am I doing, but it can be a good door opener. So I think these ways are really important. And then for you in your work and also in our work, they then come into practical play when you do interviews or stakeholder interviews, right? So when we did this little process in the Hudson Valley with farmers, we sat down with them and we had conversations with them, and based on our quality of listening and speaking, they were revealing more or less of what their really challenges are. So I think it becomes a real practical application in interviews and in just conversations, in groups or in just one-on-one. And I think now, Rachel, that gets us to the some other tools that are really helpful in terms of processes of community work or change work.
Thanks, Stefan. Yeah, I just wanted to summarize what we've heard so far. You've heard quite a bit of information. I want to go back to this slide because in your work, in all your community work, you all have an aspiration, a purpose, a vision that you're working on together. The question becomes, how do you open the doorway for people to have a sense of what your work is about, become interested, and join you? And I think what we're saying is the way to do that is to become interested in them, in their in how they see the community, how they perceive challenges, and that the entryway is through this way of working, of deep listening, and then being whether it's through a stakeholder interview or whether it's through a feedback once you have all your interviews and you bring people together to help the people that you have spoken to actually turn the spotlight on the community and onto them more than telling them something that or sharing with them something that you're trying to do. And so in any community gathering, there is such a thing as an open mic where people can express their opinions and can debate and go back and forth. But there's also the possibility to create small conversation groups where you can probe more deeply and prioritize for within a community what is the most important thing that they all feel will bring health, well-being for the earth, for each other, for themselves within their community. And so shining the spotlight on them by doing a sensing journey, going out and visiting them and different parts of the community, for example, or doing stakeholder interviews, but then bringing them together, bringing people together and having them hear what they told you is another way of working. And we did do that in our work in terms of, we did a sensing journey to throughout the Hudson Valley, and we talked with farmers and processors and retailers and nonprofit folk, and then we held an event. And as we were gathering information it wasn't information actually, as we were really talking to them, really listening to them, they told us things. We found patterns in what they were saying, and we found quotes that illustrated those patterns. When we brought people together, we told them, we shared with them what they had shared with us through quotes about the most important things, the most important challenges, the most important aspirations they had as people involved in the food system. And so that second and third parts of this three-legged stool of bringing people together to reflect together, but making the whole system, or we tried to be representative in who we brought together, so that people could listen to each other from their own words, shining the spotlight back onto them. So now, just very quickly.
Rachel, do you mind if I interrupt you very unpolitely for 1 minute?
Sure.
Well, I just want to add one more thing to what Rachel just said, which relates directly and also relates to those two slides that speak about listening and speaking.
You want me to go back there?
Well, you don't have to. It's okay.
Okay.
And that is really what we now, and Sharma in the President Institute, really one of their key sentences right now is, or key statements is, we are all farmers of social. We have to all become farmers of social soil. And so that obviously rings quite interesting in my ears as a farmer, and also in our work now with the Institute for Mindful Agriculture, we've really, I think, recognized, and it's based on our experience in working in agriculture and in organizations for many, many years, that it's very hard to work the soil out on our land to make sure that it's fertile and stays fertile and increases maybe in fertility. But that's not enough. We also have to really work on our social relationships and build something that we call social soil. And when I say this, what I mean by this is that, and I think that's something one can learn. Anytime you're in a situation where you're more than yourself, be it with two people or in a group that can be any number really. There is a quality that's invisible. It's invisible, but there's a quality, there's a substance, an invisible substance or energy in that group that we call social soil. And the way to build that, to build fertility in that social soil, is what I mentioned before, is asking good questions, having, meaningful conversations. And that can build trust, which, I sometimes think trust in a social setting is a little bit like organic matter out in the landscape, depending on the level of that, different crops will grow. And I think depending on the trust in a social group, you will get different results. And none of that is quick work, but I think it's essential work. So I just want to really add that in there, and in the project that Rachel just referred to, the social soil building is an ongoing process, right? We started that process by reaching out to farmers and asking them if you could visit them. And then we hopefully showed real interest in their operation and listened with an open mind and an open heart to what they were sharing with us. And I think that built a certain substance, because many of them, then when we invited them for this meeting just a couple of weeks ago, came. And then at that meeting was another opportunity to be together and hear what we all said to each other, and maybe, identifying these dynamics, and maybe more social soil quality was built, maybe more trust was built up. And so now it's really a matter, well, what's the next step? Because this is a process that never ends, and I think it needs to have continuous. So just like on the farm, you will apply compost or something regularly. I think just like that, you need to apply fertility to the social soil regularly. So it's really a matter of figuring out, well, how could that be? How could I do that? And that's obviously every circumstance is unique, but I just wanted to add that in, that this is, I think, for me at least, as a farmer, a helpful picture. And I think it's more than just a play on words. I really believe there is, and I think if we all pay attention, maybe together with others, of getting a sense of what the social soil feels like, I think we all would agree there is something there that can grow, just like fertility out in the landscapes. Sorry, that was a bad interruption, Rachel, but I wanted to add.
I think that was great.
Back to you.
Yeah, and I think that was great. And I just want to add that kind of building, what Steffen just said, of building social soil, requires these kind of more than one conversation, coming back, reflecting on what you heard, bringing it back again, so that the same participants and maybe new ones can start to build that trust. The same process goes on when I have a reflective conversation with myself, because that's what a practice is. I have to build that kind of inner soil with myself. I have to be able to know when when I have to be able to be honest. I have to be able to not be reactive. I have to be able to quietly reflect, find my strengths, be honest about my weaknesses, make resolves, come back, try again. That's all building inner soil. It takes the same kind of work as building social soil. And that's why rhythm is important. That's why some meditators meditate every day, a little bit, just to keep that work going. And yeah, so I've brought you now to the Presencing website because I just very quickly wanted to show you how you could get into this toolkit they offer for all your work that you're doing in your community. So if you go to resources, it brings up, doesn't bring it up. Oh no, it's down here. So I brought you to the actual U School site where the methods and tools for social transformation are offered, and I can send the link to you all. I can put it in the chat later, and you can see that they have a great many tools to further this reflecting capacity. So one called container building, which is the process of creating a safe space for a group or team by establishing both trust and ground rules for engagement. There's a diagnostic tool called an iceberg model. There's a listening assessment for how are we doing with our listening capacities. There's stakeholder interviews. There's a whole process by which you can do stakeholder interviews or dialogue interviews with one person, or how to take an empathy walk. And then the sensing journey that we took is also called a learning journey. And it goes on and on. So I want to open up just the stakeholder interviews, because if you learn, when you press the link to learn more, it gives you a summary of the tool, and then it actually allows you to explore the tool. And there it is. It's an actual step-by-step of how you would conduct a stakeholder interview. So I just wanted to show you that for every tool, they have both, they walk you through the overview of it, and they have a step-by-step. And that's okay. So what we're going to do right now for about 10 minutes is we're going to practice. We're going to break up into different rooms, 2 people per room, and we are going to practice listening to one another. We're going to, and here's how the process will go. I will ask a question. It's the next slide. And one person will speak for 5 minutes and answer the question. And the listener is going to try to do what Steffen talked about, to move beyond level 1 and 2, move beyond downloading or listening for facts, or and move into an empathic listening mode to really deeply hear and listen to what the other person is saying. And that means and the person who's speaking needs to be able to slow down their speaking to really get to the source of what the challenge is. That's what it's going to be about that they're facing. And the person who's listening would not be able to ask. So this is what we would not want you to do. We would not want you to just listen to the person and go quickly interrupt them and go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. That reminds me of something that happened to me, right? The same thing happened to me. And we all do that. I do that all the time. I'm a great associator. Anything you tell me, I can go like, oh yeah, I have an experience like that. But that's what we don't want. We want the focus to remain from the person listening on the person speaking. And if that involves pauses and silence while the person speaking can really think about what they're trying to express, so be it. Or if you're going to ask a question of the speaker if he or she or they are, a little stumped. You can ask a question that helps that person take it a little deeper. So those are the two roles, but at the same time, we're going to ask you as a listener to actually observe yourself. And that's what Steffen was talking about. That's the hard part. That's like, can I see where I'm getting impatient and thinking about something else? Can I see that I'm really, really interested and I'm actually forgetting myself for a minute here and really involved in what that person is saying? Do I move in and out of that state? However it is for you. So you will listen and observe yourself at the same time. Do you want to add something, Steffen?
Yeah, just one thing as I'm listening. I want to just add that we all want to be gentle with ourselves, right? Because we are already putting, the advanced level, right? Doing this on Zoom is advanced, triple advanced level, right? This is hard enough in person. I think doing on Zoom, although all of you, we all know each other to some degree. Some of you know each other to some degree, but on Zoom, that's extra challenging. So applause up front for you to trying this, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And so now let me get to the question. If you're the speaker, tell your partner about a recent challenge that you have been facing in your work that you're all involved in, or it can be in your personal life, or a whole other challenge with another human that you're encountering, or even with a pet that you're trying to train, any kind of challenge, something that's, and describe it in as much detail as you can. Be specific, place, time, description of people, etc. Just an event, right? As a listener, practice observing yourself move through the 4 levels of listening. Try to ask questions that will bring the speaker to deeper penetrating of the challenge. Do not try to solve the problem and don't associate their problem with you. Just keep asking deeper questions and see if you can bring yourself to the point of empathic listening. And then we'll give you a minute. We'll return to being all together, and we'll give you a minute or two to journal. What did you observe as a listener and as a speaker? So we'll have 5 minutes for one person to listen and the other person to speak, and then 5 minutes the other way around. and then we'll come back in about 10 minutes.
The
What's
only
that?
thing, the only thing I would say, Rachel, maybe we should come back in about 6 or 7 minutes. Otherwise, I think we're running out of time for sort of
Oh,
questions and conversation. So I think let's do it for 3 minutes each. That's still quite a bit of time to practice
okay.
this, and then we'll come back for the whole.
Okay. Okay.
Snatched back into reality here.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see everybody. When I was presenting and I couldn't see anybody. It's hard to talk when you can't actually see the participants. I feel like I was talking to myself. So I don't know. We have a few minutes. Does anyone have to really absolutely hard stop at 2:30, or can we
I
everybody?
have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just open it up for questions, Rachel.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Let's open it up. You can, for questions, or how was the experience?
Comments, critiques, anything.
Yeah.
The experience was good. Olga and I were paired up, and we were hoping that there would have been some kind of a timer to remind us, because I was involved listening and she was involved talking. So it was it was one-sided, but it was a great experience to stay focused on what Olga was talking about. It was not tough, but I'm an empathetic listener, so I'm like you, Rachel, where I can relate to something, and so I just listened, and then so that was it. Yeah, it took some brain power.
It's not, it's work.
Yeah, yeah, it was good though.
And even just questions about the whole thing, right? I mean, it's open for anything at this point.
Open for anything, since we only have a few minutes.
Well, my question is scaling this up. Having that kind of experience, that empathic listening, asking the right questions. I think that's a lot easier to do on a one-to-one basis. How do you scale that up when you're in a group? I mean, I can't even imagine being able to extend empathy to a room full of people.
Yeah, I think that this is something we wanted to share with you. So when we did our sensing journey, we had 35 people in the room. And what you do is you break them up. You learn. It's capacity building. If you're facilitating a conversation amongst 35 people, you learn how to design the whole event so that it happens as a you, in the you form. And so you start out in groups of 2, you break the ice, you come back. It's a whole design process that you learn. And then you get to the point where it's groups of 2 and 3, and then they feed back to the whole group. And then you get to the point by the afternoon where the whole group is sitting together, and hopefully you've generated something where the whole group can speak and listen together. And what I was going to say was that we're looking into bringing a Presencing Foundation program into this region, so that anybody who might be interested in learning some of these techniques and learning how to facilitate it with larger groups would be able to take this foundation work.
Can I ask when you're doing that?
Steffen?
Well, we're planning to do it, but if it would happen, it would be later next year. Probably earliest would be fall 2026 is our best guess at this point. But don't put anything in your journals or write anything down in stone yet, because it's all very exploratory at this stage. I mean, I would just add to what Rachel just shared in relation to your question, Olga. I think it really also starts out, how do you build into a larger group, right? If it starts out in smaller groups and then you bring people together that already have a little bit of a relationship amongst themselves, I mean, sort of build it kind of builds. And I don't know. Unfortunately I haven't found a sort of magic bullet. You just snap your finger and you have a big group in a room and they're just gelling. It's just I think it's just ongoing work, regular ongoing. This cultivation of this part of our lives is really something I think I certainly have to learn again. I think in not that long ago that there's sort of much more of a natural way of fostering that, or being living in more of a state like this, but it's pretty much lost, at least for me these days. And I think one has to really find ways to rebuild it. And I think the word rhythm that Rachel brought up is very important. Rhythm and um, reaching out to people and have these conversations, or small groups, like groups of 6 or 7, just building these. And then Sharma talks about these islands of coherence, finding a group of people that you feel comfortable with, or you have a common intent, and you just get together regularly and just work in this way. I think can really sort of build it. It's like sort of these what's the word I'm looking for, Rachel, in the soil when it coalesces, these little crumbs, and then the crumbs together
Humus.
yeah,
It's colloidal.
colloidal, yeah, the colloidal pieces. Anyways, just add that in there. Sorry.
That sticky
More-
glue stuff that keeps soil together, soil crumbs together.
I was hoping that you could, Rachel and Stefan, you could share with the group that when you brought these farmers together, it wasn't, let me just say, it wasn't always the Hawthorne Valley type of farmer, but some more traditional folks who maybe, would see themselves as the odd man out. And I was just wondering if you could talk more about that experience of connecting with those folks, inviting them in.
Well, there were a few of those folks. They came. I think they came because when we did the stakeholder interview, they were intrigued by the method, is what I'm speculating, that we listened to them. And they were so happy to share about their work that when we said, "Oh, we're gonna have a feedback time. We're gonna tell you, we're gonna show you, you're gonna hear what everyone else said." Um, and when we got together, they came, and one of them said, "Hey, I'm the odd man out here." He said those exact words, and he laughed. And he was comfortable enough to say it because he knew it. That there were nonprofits and smaller farms, and he had 1,000 cow dairy. And he joked and laughed and was comfortable and was willing to talk one-on-one or groups of 3. So I think a lot depends on how people are first approached. And then we did say we were going to send some quotes. We were going to do this quote theater, where we turn the spotlight back on people and we say, "This is what you told us that you care about." And we actually sent people the quotes beforehand. And some of them were very interesting quotes because we wanted their permission, even though it was anonymous, to use the quotes. And then I think some people got just intrigued at that point about what was going to happen. So they came. I don't know if that answers, Vanessa.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, I think what I would add, though, is, well, a couple of things. Is one, clearly, this is just the beginning of the process. We haven't really made any decisions or moved the whole food system in the Hudson Valley in a certain direction. So that needs to be recognized as well. And then I would also say what it made me realize just recently, it was another number that really kind of jerked me awake, that you can end up in your own little bubble kind of thing. And I think what you're trying to do with your project is really consciously step out of it. And so I did a little bit of research, and this predominant farming system that this gentleman is involved in versus this regenerative system is it's not even it's I couldn't believe it. The organically certified acreage in this country is not even 1% of the total agricultural acreage. It's not even, it's 0.7%. So that kind of wakes you up. And so what made me think about is, well, I really need to find more conscious ways to talk to these folks that have grown all our food, literally, and learn and learn together, and then see if together we can eventually maybe shift it in a way. I mean, they have challenges. Every single farmer has challenges. So it made me realize that too, as we were sort of, they were very much underrepresented in this room as well.
A quick question. I wondered if the type of workshop that you brought together after these interviews is very similar to the model that my group wants to do. And I know that you, Rachel, mentioned that there's kind of a skill or technique to facilitating it and how to kind of structure it to get this, build the social soil and get to kind of a generative spot. So I would love to know more about how to do that as we're starting to plan for those workshops. And I wondered if you have a resource you could point me and my group to, or if we could have another conversation about that.
I think we'd be happy to have a conversation and share what we learned. It's a learning curve. And our colleague Ursula has been doing this for like 30 years, right? And we've done workshops, but it's different when even this workshop, this little bit now, we did all the presenting. We talked at you, right? And you only had a little taste of it at the very end. So, and she would say, you have to be thinking of the people who are coming. That should be your primary way of constructing and designing your workshop.
But just imagine yourself in the shoes of a couple of people that you know will be there, and sort of try to figure out, well, how would they, what are they going to feel? What are they going to see when they walk in? But I think we'd be very happy to follow up and learn a little more of your project, Anya, and help if we can.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem with that. And we can show you what we did, and then a lot of it has to do with the quality of the questions you're asking the group.
Okay. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would really love to. I thought I kind of am in a mode, so I thought we were gonna talk about farming today. Still have all these. I'd love to connect with the two of you, just like on farming in the Hudson Valley in general, because that's a big deal for, regionalizing our food supply, is a big deal for, climate change and dealing with this in the future. So.
Well, well, I mean, that's music to my ears, because I always figure agriculture, and there was a question, right? So this methodology, the theory U, is pretty much applied across the Sharma, that team works across the globe and in all continents, really. Interesting enough, probably the fewest projects on this continent here, but they work with communities, they work with local governments.
They work with business,
agriculture in Netherlands, but they work with corporations. So in all fields, really, agriculture is, again, mostly not really represented much. So it's music to my ears when you say this, Kate, because I believe there is a key in agriculture, right, that can actually link a lot of the problems we're facing and maybe move the dial in a good direction. So you all know where to find us, so feel free to reach out. I'd love to continue the conversation on whichever way you feel is helpful.
But I also feel that, we said we would talk about this methodology because it's applicable in all fields. I'm happy to talk about how we're trying to apply it in agriculture. But this building of the social soil is the essence of presencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And applicable. I mean, Ursula's first project that she ever did, her first theory U project, was with health insurance, a whole big company of people involved in health insurance, big corporations. So it's just applicable anywhere.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share with Theory U and this idea of the social soil, like it's that metaphor also works because what we see above ground, like the plants or the trees emerging from ground, are really just the products of what is invisible happening below ground. And so like that is so much of what you all are doing with your projects is really trying to become conscious and intentional with something that's just often taken for granted,
Yeah.
not even acknowledged. People are unaware, but
Mm.
it's so, so critically important. Yeah.
I think it has to
Totally.
do with the way we're trained to think. We're trained to think conceptually, strategically, put out all the outer, how do we deal with the outer stuff? We never do that work of turning the spotlight on ourselves and going like, oh, the kind of result I'm going to get is going to depend on who I am. We never do that work. We don't. It's not the way we're taught in school to think about anything, really. So, yeah, it's invisible. That's right.
Well, I find that's very interesting because I feel like I was trained um to listen, or like I was raised that way. And I went to a private school, so that might have been part of it. It was a very different academic setting, but I just find that interesting because we were kind of trained to listen, not in the U theory, not to the complexity, but we were trained to really listen. So but I guess that's missing from other institutions, people, because I'm finding people didn't have that experience growing up, most people.
Not in public school. We were
Oh,
listening
really?
to memorize facts.
Right, right.
Oh,
And I wonder, Kate, like, did you feel listened to, or was it like, listen, children? You did.
no.
No, you
Yeah,
didn't.
we had conversations with our professors.
Yeah.
Like that was one thing that really struck me when I got to college was that my peers couldn't have conversations, and I think my teachers were kind of dumbfounded.
Yeah.
We had we were trained to have adult conversations. We were trained to be respectful to adults, but we were trained to engage and have conversations.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think so I've noticed that in my adult life that people are like so suppressed or discouraged from communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haven't been heard.
Yeah.
I'd like to give Heather a chance. I'd like to
I'm
listen
listening.
to her.
No, I do think it's interesting, because a lot of times I feel a little bit nervous about speaking up because I always feel like there's something you're supposed to know or impart on someone else. So I actually thought that it was really interesting on your website. You have the meditation of being a cow. And I thought that that was very interesting because I don't feel like we do that enough. Like we just assume like they're there, they're food, it's on your plate, you eat it, you go on with your life. And I think it's really important to really think about that because I think that's how you start to care about these other things, so whether it's another, maybe even, having a farmer, having somebody who does a certain profession or having, I am a tree, what's that like? So I just thought that was a really cool thing that you had on your website. And I really think that that helps to build, um, really does help at least to build that thought, thinking about things from another's perspective.
Especially, it doesn't have to be human only, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been vegetarian vegan most of my life, and so it's always sad to me that people don't think of the animal that they're eating. I understand that, in some circumstances it makes sense to eat animals, but I certainly don't think we need to eat them en masse the way that we do. And when you were talking about the farms with thousands of animals and just how destructive that is to everybody involved, I don't feel like we talk about that nearly enough.
Hmm. Right. Hmm. Well, I know the launch has done in the whole conversation about agriculture now because that could go on for a long time. That'll be another conversation.
Well, thank you guys so much, and thanks for staying on a little bit.
Yeah.
Super, super thought-provoking, and
Mm.
thank you guys for sharing your experiences and your expertise.
Well,
We're willing.
for having us.
You have our emails. Anybody have questions? We're happy to continue.
And then thanks for bearing with us. This was kind of like we don't do that often in two different rooms with one script with different slides. So thanks for bearing with us. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. I should have made it so that anyone could share their screen. So sorry about that. That's my bad.
Right.
All
All
right.
right. Well,
This was
thank
great.
you.
Okay, take care.
See you.
Bye.
See you around. Bye-bye.
Bye.